All right, let's get into this video. And I am so sorry, you guys, for not doing a video for like, I don't know, 3 weeks now. And my last one was a product review, and I know how some people are with those, but I will try to do better. So today's video is on Reef Aquariums. As you notice, this one's an SBS tank, but we will be talking about other coral too. But just in general, for reef tanks, what it takes to, keep them successfully, if you have issues, how to take care of it. Just, be happy with your tank, regardless of what it looks like. This tank is not perfect whatsoever. It has issues to it. And I just, I get through it. I take care of it. And I had an issue back in February, as a matter of fact, when I decided to switch salt. Didn't work out, so I switched back, and now everything is much better. So let's get started with how to keep a successful reef tank. So I guess I'll start this from the top down, and we'll start with lighting. As you can see, I have a lot of lights on this tank. And as a matter of fact, I'm running into an issue because it's summertime. These kind of have some heat to them, even though they're LEDs. And it's heating up my water a little bit. I'm at like almost 81 degrees. So that's another thing to consider with lighting is temperature, obviously, but we'll get there. You're going to need sufficient lighting. So with coral, they require a full spectrum lighting. Some coral just like the blue spectrum, but I like the fuller spectrum for my coral. But I don't have it full spectrum all day. I do shift to the blues at night. Just kind of gives them a little bit more range of color in the coral, and they just seem to do better with that full range as far as a balance between growth and color. The bluer lights will lend more color to the coral. However, I feel that the whiter, fuller spectrum encourages growth, especially with SBS coral like this. Look at this guy here. This cool yellow tips growing out nice. So is that one. So I attribute that to not only keeping my water parameters in check, but also my lighting. But as far as lights go, you don't have to go this elaborate if you don't want to. There are many, many options now. These are Kessel A360X lights, and they are on a Reef Bright XHO fixture. Obviously, these are very expensive lights, something like $2,500 really, and that's more than all of this put together is just in the lights. But I wanted that just so it would help out the coral and make them kind of, in my mind, pop out better. I honestly don't have anything to compare it to because when I had this tank back in the day, I just had black box lights, and you can start off with black box lights. There's nothing wrong with that. But I can't compare, then to now because the coral are grown out now, and they were just little frags back then. But I wanted that Kessel shimmer, which you can see is shimmering here. And there are a few lights that do that now. But that's why I went with that option for the lights. Nowadays, if you're looking at lights, you're like, geez, which one do I get? Just about all of them will do okay for you. So I would just research the different functions, make sure they got the functions you want. Does it ramp up and ramp down? Does the color shift? I mean, just look at all the different options on it and see if that's something you want. But this is what I wanted for this tank, so that's why it's on here. It's definitely not a requirement, but it's just like a personal preference, and I think it works wonders for the coral too. All right, and making our way down, you see lots of water movement. So each type of coral requires different water movement. This tank requires a lot of water movement because it's an SBS tank. There's a lot of photosynthesis going on in this tank down here, so it requires a lot of water flow. It needs a lot of light, and it needs a lot of flow. And that makes a lot of photosynthesis. It makes the coral grow, and it makes them color up, as you can see here. So flow is the next consideration. Not all corals need that high of flow. So you'll just have to research your coral and see what kind of flow it needs. However, these guys right here, like little bursts. You'll just see the polyps all of a sudden just swaying, and they like little bursts of flow. Just little random bursts and moving around, and that seems to make them happy. See that? It's not all the time. They're not sideways, but just every so often they'll get a little burst, and they'll move around, and that seems to keep those torches happy. And also this giant frog spawn right here, and these hammers for that matter. That's what I find with the Ophelia and Fimbriophilia is they just like little bursts like that. Unfortunately, there's not really like a ready-made meter you can just stick in the tank and measure flow. but there are some devices that you can plumb in line that'll give you an idea if you really want to try to measure it. However, it's more just an eyeball. I'll see if I can focus in on some polyps here, and we'll take a look at my coral with the flow. Okay, there we go. I was able to focus in on this Pasillipora colony here, if my fish will stop photobombing. And as you can see, the polyps just kind of move in different directions, and they're not moving all the time. You can see it's kind of just like a breeze coming out of one direction or the other. This just gives you an idea of what this tank has. And again, here's the Walt Disney. As you can see, it's not as purple and pink as it usually is. Ooh, the lights just changed. My reef lights just turned off. However, I can color this coral back up, and it does that. It'll shift colors every so many months, depending on tank parameters, you know, the temperature and the nitrates and the phosphates. So I got to keep all that in check, and it's a fine balance to really keep this coral in peak color. But as you can see there's lots of little polyps moving around in between the colony there, and that's what keeps them nice and happy. So as I just said, my reef bright strips just turned off, and now it's just the Kessels on. And the Kessels will ramp down for the night. And that's what I was using there, that little flipper lens, to focus in on those polyps. Look at that. That's why I like having these. I highly recommend these if you have an SPS tank. That way you can see all the little polyps in your coral. All right, so next let's talk about algae. If you notice, you look at this tank and you'd be like, what algae? Well, actually I do get algae in this tank sometimes. And if you notice, I have a lot of little friends here to help me out with that. See all these little snails? I just bought 300 of them, not for this tank, but I have 4 tanks with coral in them. So I bought 300 snails for 4 tanks, and I put maybe about 80 or so in this tank. And my urchins help out too. So the reason why I have so many is because I got all these little nooks and crannies, especially with this coral diet right here. And that's where the algae grows, right there. And if I don't have something to take care of it, it will grow out a little bit. Luckily, the tang helps me too, but it'll just kind of turn the rocks brown in this tank. It doesn't get super long in here. But however, for reef tanks in general, to keep algae down, you got to have some kind of cleanup crew. I mean, either it's going to be these guys here, or those guys down there, or guess what? It's going to be you. So take your pick. Do you want to do it, or do you want to have them do it? So don't be stingy with your cleanup crew. I like to aim, I like snails for one thing, but you know, you do you. I like to aim for 1 critter per gallon. These guys here, the urchins, I kind of count as like 4 or 5 because they do a pretty good job. But however, they can't get in all the little nooks and crannies. And as you can see, I got some detritus down here too I got to get rid of. So with algae, you're going to need a cleanup crew, and not just a couple snails. Like I said, if you got like a 10-gallon tank, okay, get 10 snails or get 5 snails and 5 crabs or something like that. But this tank, you know, it's a medium-sized tank. It's a 75-gallon. So I put 80 snails in it, and I have urchins too. And if I ever see that there's a lot of algae that's gone and they don't have nothing to eat, then I'll throw some nori in there. I got a nori clip right here, but I can also put some down there. But I find that I don't need to do that in this tank because it wants to grow. The nitrate in this tank right now is 25 ppm. Usually I like it around 10 to 15. I think because my skimmer broke on me, that's why it went up. So I got to take care of that. But however, you don't really notice it because I got all these snails in this tank taking care of the algae for me. So the other part of that is filtration. We want to get the stuff that comes out of these fish, the crap if you will, all the wastes, we want them to go out of the tank somehow. This tank does have a sump. If you have an all-in-one, then you have some kind of filter unit on the back of your tank. This right here is the overflow box. This is just a weir for the overflow box. And see, I got a snail right there cleaning it for me. That's cool. This, I believe, is the eShops large. Sorry about that. There we go. eShops Eclipse, I think is what it's called. And this is the large one. It's got the 3 different drains. See if I can pop the top off. It's been so long since I've had this top off, I don't even know what's in there. Oh, not too bad. I just put a couple little elbows on there. And then that one doesn't have nothing on it because if I got water going down there, I want to know about it and I want that to be noisy. It'll make kind of like a slurping noise if it goes down that red drain. These other ones are just to keep it quiet, which as you can tell, it's not super loud at all. But that's the overflow box, and we'll take a look underneath at the sump for the rest of the filtration. All right, so just to kind of clue you in on my budget for things, this is a Marine Land 75-gallon aquarium that I got from PetSmart. It's not one of those fancy aquariums that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. I think 6 or 7 years ago, I paid $300 for the tank, the stand, and it even came with like a little light and stuff for it that I can't use, obviously. But just to let you know, I do not go real expensive on stuff if I can help it for tanks. Some things I'll spend the money, but for the tank itself and the sump, I honestly, you guys are the only ones seeing this right now, but I just want to show you how it works. So right off the bat, there's my UV sterilizer. I only use it if I have to. I used to use it all the time. Every once in a while, I'll get some little, brown stringy snot in here, which is dinoflagellates. Usually I get the Osteopsis, and that one will go into the water when there's no light, and then this UV sterilizer will knock it out every time. And I haven't had to run that for a while. So inside of my dirty sump, which by the way is a 29-gallon Aquarium aquarium, just for my sump, which is kind of packed with stuff in there right now. I do have an algae scrubber right here, which has been helping lately up until my skimmer broke. My broken skimmer back there, I think it might be just something stuck in the motor or the impeller. I got to take it out. I got to take all my plumbing apart to get that out of there. Yeah, not the best design, Matt. But I honestly, this algae scrubber was added after the fact, and I kind of shoehorned it in there. This skimmer used to be back over here out of the way, in my defense, but I cannot get this sump out without moving the whole tank, which is not going to happen. Anyhow, coming out of the overflow box, I got a drain. There's my little valve to help keep it quiet, and I just go right into a filter sock like that. It's a little more noisy to do it this way, but I just have one sock for the 2 drains, and about once, twice a week, I'll clean it out. Honestly, I'll probably hear it when it overflows, but that's for the mechanical filtration. I just have a filter sock. Now, if you don't have a filter sock on your tank, what will happen is all the crap that goes in that filter sock is going to go in your sump, and then you're going to have to clean your sump all the time. So take your pick. Do you want to clean the filter sock every so many days, or do you want to clean your sump? Well, you're supposed to clean your sump, but at least every so many months. It's going to get all kinds of gook in it, and as you can see, I got some coralline and all kinds of stuff in there, and some detritus does make it through, as you can see anyway, but nearly not as bad as not using a sock, because I was doing that for a while, and it just caked up down there. So I like running a sock much better anyway. All right, and there is my sort of dirty return pump. That is just an Amazon special. It's called like Orlushy or something like that, but that thing's like 6 years old, so it's doing pretty good. I did not have that good of luck with the other ones that I bought, knock on wood, but this particular one is done pretty good for me so far. I just clean it out once a year and make sure there's no gook building into it. But that is the return for the aquarium there, for the reef tank. And I run my UV sterilizer on a separate loop, and I have a separate pump for that, which you can barely see right there. So that is a separate loop for that. And I just have that tuned. So I forgot how many gallons it said to run through there for algae and stuff, but I have it tuned for that with this valve right here. All right, so the idea of your filtration, in case you don't know and you're new to reefing, is when wastes or food or anything like that breaks down, it'll break down into ammonia and to nitrate and a nitrate eventually. If you don't get it out with mechanical means through a sock or something like that, it'll break down and it'll increase in your water. Problem with that is some coral don't like that. Coral in here tolerate, honestly, higher nitrate than most people are comfortable running, but it's not limitless. I mean, there is a limit to where they'll just start to not look good, and that's why I don't like to go any higher than 25, honestly, for nitrate. Phosphate, I'm dosing it, so it don't matter. I haven't even ran into that problem, but I've read that phosphate can be limiting, so you want to keep it in reason with an SBS tank. However, if we go over here to my frag tank, these guys can tolerate a little more. And there's my testing. I just did a water change on this, so I got to retest. But these guys can tolerate a little bit more nutrients in the water, so you can tune your filtration to accommodate them. And even more so for softy corals like this, these guys are very forgiving with higher nutrients. And as you can see, they do not require such high flow that was in the SBS tank. They actually like a little bit lower flow. And yes, that's a clownfish inside of a toadstool. Look at that. All right, so another topic to discuss is your rock for your tank. On this tank, I did go with dry rock, and it used to have sand. I bought the black volcanic sand. It was Hawaiian sand. As you can see, this tank does not have sand now, and I'll explain that in a minute. But to start off, this tank had dry rock, and it had live black volcanic ash, if you will, sand. And honestly, I did have problems with coral for the first, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, because this was always going to be an SBS tank. That was my goal. I did not want a mixed tank because my reefing sensei, if you will, at the time told me that if you want to keep SBS coral, it's a lot easier to just have all SPS in one tank because the parameters will be the same and you're not trying to please everybody. So that's why I went with this for this tank. Now this is my only reef display tank. I used to have another tank, but I took it down and I just had this tank and 3 frag tanks and Puffy's tank, the 135 gallon fowler over there. But getting back to this one, with that dry rock and that sand, it did take a while. Like the tank was cycled just fine. It took about 6 weeks, 8 weeks or something like that. But starting off with SPS coral, it did not do good for, like I said, 6 to 8 months. So after I did my initial trial with them, I just let things go. And the ones that made it, like this green slimer made it. And I think the Pavona here was one of them. And maybe some Monty Cap. So there was a few that did okay. The Pasillipora too. Funny thing with that is I thought it all disappeared. And the funny thing with Pasillipora is it just pops up wherever. Like right there on the side. Or right there on the return. Or on that return. So yeah, Pasillipora just kind of pops up everywhere. So just be aware of that. This one's not so bad. But that's one of the original ones that made it too. But like I said, I had issues. Now, your best choice, if you can afford it, would be live rock, but just be aware it might have some critters on it and stuff, but it's not the end of the world if you get them. You just deal with it, and that's kind of like the next thing to talk about too, is when you have tank issues, do not let them go. Do not say, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. Take care of it now. When things pop up and things happen, don't wait. Get it done now. For one thing, you may not know what it'll lead to next. Maybe something worse will happen if you don't take care of it, especially electrical issues. So make sure you're taking care of those problems as soon as they pop up. And that's exactly what one of those little problems I was talking about right there. I don't know if you can tell what those are. I did like a little shorts video about a year ago saying, no aptasia in this tank. Well, guess what? There's 2 of them right there that I got to nuke. Those are my biggest pet peeve, and I do not want them in my display tank. So that's what I mean. Do not let issues go. And I'm going to take care of those tonight. So the next thing I want to talk about is testing. I do have an Apex on this. I know not everybody has a controller. I didn't either for a long time. So I do use the Neptune Trident to test. However, I also have the Hanna checkers as well. And I don't care which test kit you have. Just use it. I can't tell you how many people spend the money on the test kits and they don't use them. So make sure you're using your test kits. Make sure if they have reagents, that the reagents are in date. Do the stuff you're supposed to do. You can't help your tank if you don't know where it's at. And if you do water changes, that's going to tell you when to do a water change too. If your nitrate and phosphate's high or something's way off, sometimes a nice water change will take care of that too. All right, so I will put up my parameters for this tank today, and it is running a little hot. Because it is summertime, I have the window open, so I'm probably going to shut that and turn the air on. I did put a fan on this tank. It's not doing so great right now, so I got to make some adjustments. But I'll put up my parameters right here for today. And you can see where my elk and calcium and magnesium is according to the Trident. But like I said, I do spot check that, especially the alkalinity. I'll spot check it with a Hanna. but it runs pretty close, so I'm not too worried about it. But just make sure when you're testing your tank that you're actually paying attention to it. I look at my parameters every day. I test once a week for nitrate and phosphate, just to know if I need to do a water change or dose phosphate. That's why I test that, and I do that for all of my tanks except for Puffy's tank because there's no coral in it. Puffy time, it's Puffy time. Oh, and it's fin time. Hi, Finn. Finn and Puffy time. They just wanted to say bye. See you later. Well, that'll do it for this video. I'm Reefer Matt. Thank you for watching and happy reefing.